gotta tell somebody.
This is the best thing I've ever seen.
Let's talk about that.
Listen to this.
Memorable and exciting.
Well, then be less boring.
I'm going to tell everyone. Wait here.
Mighty remarkable, Big Daddy.
Remarkable.
Welcome to Remarkable, a podcast for B2B marketers that deconstructs the most iconic moments in film, television, pop culture, and advertising for a single purpose: to give you, the B2B marketer, the same storytelling techniques that the pros use. In each episode, you will learn techniques from Hollywood, Pixar, Marvel, and beyond, from Spielberg's hands to yours, bringing remarkable content ideas to you every single week. I'm Ian Faison, CEO of Caspian Studios. This is Remarkable. This week, we're talking about B2B marketing lessons from Spotify Wrapped, the head of marketing at Postman, Justine Davis. Justine, how are you?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me today.
Excited to have you on the show. Very thrilled to talk about Spotify Wrapped and everything in between. So why the heck did you pick Spotify Wrapped to talk about?
All right. So Spotify is probably one of my favorite brands. I always say that one day I'll work there because of the amount of data they have, which is always fun in marketing. So Spotify first, very avid user of the platform, which will show with my Wrapped. And it's my all-time favorite campaign. Any team I've led can tell you that. I've written a lot of blogs on it. I've done a lot of research on the company and how they scale as I've built products. And I think what Spotify has done is kind of create a new category with campaigns, actually. And it was the first of its kind. And now everyone's doing it. It's like they started a trend where like even YouTube Music tried to do a Wrapped. Every company at the end of the year is trying to do a Wrapped. Like I remember Reddit gave me a Wrapped even. Mm-hmm. So it's like they started a trend, really. And I think that what it can do for the user is make you feel, which is one of the most powerful marketing like tactics you can do. So like you can go throughout your year and be like, oh man, in June, I really listened to a lot of Avril Lavigne. What was I thinking? Like, what was I going through at that time?
Tell me what it had to go and make things so complicated.
And so it can make you relive moments that you might have forgotten about or been like, oh man, I really had a hard rap phase in May. Like I must have been angry about something. So I think it's very creative.
Pretty much the funniest is the one that they did that said, "Dear person who played Sorry 42 times on Valentine's Day, what did you do?"
Oh my gosh. I could not agree more. So I think that's why I'm so obsessed with this campaign, because there's a few facets of it and they do it throughout the year. Like I know there's like one drop at the end of the year. Everybody knows it's coming. They build a lot of anticipation to make sure that people know, even if you don't have Spotify yet, like you should sign up because you could get a month's worth of data in. But they turn your year into like audio form and tell the story of your year.
One part that is this digital web app experience that allows you to see how you listen throughout the year. And the other side of it is like a cultural brand campaign.
They have done a really good job of making it shareable content, like what they've done with having it integrate with social platforms and the personal data and how that's evolved over the year is very cool. And then also the FOMO effect, like the fear of missing out on like not having Spotify Wrapped. Like if you are that one person who's using Pandora still or YouTube Music, it could like, I got a text last year from one of my close friends on the day it dropped. And she was like, hey, I just switched over to Spotify from Apple Music because I don't want to be in the same seat this time next year. And so I'm so excited for my Spotify Wrapped. Like it definitely has done something that very few campaigns have.
Dear person who made a playlist called One Night Stand with Jeb Bush, like he's a Bond girl in a European casino. We have so many questions. Thanks 2016, it's been weird.
That's the other thing is like, I was actually living in San Francisco during that time. So all over the city, Spotify Wrapped took over the city. So they would take not only like your personal details and serve it to you in terms of like the story of your year, but it showed trends throughout like what was going on in the economy or what was going on throughout the year. And like they took just the most hilarious data of like, I remember one of them was that song, like,
you had a bad day.
Yeah.
like they did one of those on a billboard in San Francisco of like, the same thing, like, dear person who played You've Had a Bad Day 52 times. Are you okay? It's just so smart and witty. So like, not only was it like a direct to consumer share, you can get online attribution, but the brand marketing for where they decided to do regional stuff, they could probably see a brand lift from that too. So I just think in terms of like how they did it and structured the campaign was really smart.
Okay, last one. 2016's top artists on Spotify: Drake, Justin Bieber, the person who made a playlist called In All Forms Except Physical, I Am an Enchilada.
What does
I
it mean?
love it.
So good.
And it's just like, what a fun marketing job,
So fun.
right? To like sit and analyze all that, to have access to that kind of data. And I remember like Netflix did a similar thing too when they started being like blink twice if you're okay. Like they would send like funny ads. Like if you were the person who watched the same thing for 12 hours straight, like they would start to serve you like, can you please press the button to let us know you're there?
Yeah.
It's hilarious.
Specifically the Thanks 2016, It's Been Weird stuff. I remember, that was the big thing about 2016 and everybody hated it and all this other sort of stuff, which, I chalk up to the youth being young, to be fully honest. But it's just, oh man, it's so funny. That's just such a funny campaign.
So do you remember what your Spotify Wrapped was?
In 2016?
Like what year?
Or for this year?
No, not in 2016. I'm like, we can go that far back, but in terms of the last year.
So I do, because I don't listen to Spotify music because there's a reason. Because I have a 3-year-old, and so we watch whatever songs that he wants to watch, and usually we end up watching it on YouTube so that it plays a single song and then stops playing. So actually, hold on, I gotta find it. I'll find it. It's really funny. What was your Spotify Wrap, Meredith? I was gonna ask you both this question, and I had it teed up for myself to be funny. But Meredith, what was yours?
I was really into listening to music from like the 60s, 70s. So I was listening to, I think I was in the top like 1% listeners for the Mamas and the Papas.
That is Meredith O'Neill, our amazing producer extraordinaire.
And then Creedence Clearwater Revival, which I think is really funny, actually. Some of it I kind of like when it's a little bit embarrassing, like how much you listen to one thing, What about you, Justine?
I love that. Speaking of, actually, because when I was earlier on, I have a 6-year-old now, but when he was younger, we share the same Spotify. So all the things I would play to put him to sleep or whatever. I remember one year the top of my Spotify Wrapped was like Wheels on the Bus. And then it was Encanto. Yeah. It was Encanto one year. And I'm like, oh man, I really got to figure out a way to segment that out. So this year though, I mean, anybody who knows me, this won't come as a surprise, but I do wear this as a badge of honor. It was in the top 1% of listeners to Taylor Swift, which as we know with the year she's had, is not easy to do. Not easy to do. So in order to get that, I'm looking at it right now. You had to have listened to 6,588 minutes.
Gosh. Wait, how long?
My number 1 song. 6,588 minutes. And I'm only in the top 1%. So for the people who are in like the top 0.1 or whatever, like I would love to know how many hours they've spent crying with Taylor.
That's really good. So I found the one that I'm talking about. So it was my Spotify Wrapped from 2 years ago. And it was like, and they say stuff like they try to be so cheeky with it, and like open your app to reveal your number 1 artist, top songs, minutes listened, and more. Spoiler, you listen to 28 different artists. So for the whole year, I already listened to 28 different artists, which is hilarious. And Shakira was my number 1 artist. Because
those hips really don't lie.
And the reason why is because I would play Try Everything was my son's favorite song. And so it was like, basically, I only listened to Try Everything on Spotify for that entire year, which is pretty great. Aww. So that was my Spotify Wrapped.
So
I
cute.
love that.
Shout out to possibly the most underrated Disney movie, Officer Hops. Just so good.
Officer Hobbs, how did that miss me?
Well, no, her name is Try Everything is from Zootopia.
What movie is that? Oh, I don't think I've seen it.
Oh my gosh.
I'll have to put it on my list.
It is amazing. It's so good. Oh,
I'll have to put it on my list.
It's so good. You gotta check it out. And you have a 6-year-old? Perfect.
I do have a 6-year-old. So it's going on the list.
There's a couple like crazy, a little bit scary animals. That's the only thing that I've had to shield his eyes a few times. But he loves that song, Try Everything, which is a great song. And it's my Spotify Wrapped. It's like my only thing that I wrapped.
That's funny. I feel like mine in 2023 was pretty basic because top artist was obviously Tay, big fan, but also Beyonce. That's when she entered her country era. So I had that as number 2. John Mayer, because I went to go see John Mayer at the Footprint Center in Phoenix, which is where the Suns play. And I'll never forget, I was preparing for it and bringing back to my like John Mayer love days. And they opened with Slow Dancing in a Burning Room with just a red light and like his acoustic guitar. And it was a spiritual experience. So then I was obsessed with listening to that on repeat. And then I think my round of the top 5, Zach Bryan and then Ed Sheeran. So I don't know if this makes me basic or what, but
have you seen the Zach Bryan video that we've covered a Zach Bryan song on this very podcast in the past. Was it Something in the Orange?
Which one?
Something in the Orange.
Yeah, we covered that video on this very show if you want to check it out. But also, we're going to cover in the not too distant future, because I demand it, the video that he just did with Matthew McConaughey. And I forget the name of the song off the top of my head. Oh, 9 Ball. And it's like literally makes me cry every time. It's like the perfect like 3 minutes of entertainment. That maybe my favorite 3 minutes the entire year. I like can't get enough of it. I don't know why. But anywho, zooming back out. We'll get back to Spotify Wrapped. Zooming out. Tell us about Postman and your work there as head of marketing.
So I'm actually newer at Postman. I am running a team of a little over 50, I think, right now. But we are the world's leading API collaboration platform. So for those who may not be in the tech industry, but APIs are how other applications talk to each other. So APIs power the magic behind AI. They power the magic behind if you go to place an order on DoorDash and you need to use that application to connect with the restaurant's menu and place an order with PayPal or Square or your Apple Pay. Those are all powered by APIs. And so right now I am really excited to talk to you about Spotify Wrapped, because I think it's actually very similar to the kind of marketing that I can do at Postman, because APIs run the world, like the software runs on it. And you can see so much data from when APIs are called and certain trends. And one of the coolest use cases I've seen, I know we're nerding out about Spotify Wrapped, but like when you talk about APIs and how that data can be used, is you can see the top trending APIs, the top trending companies and stuff like that. So the rise in AI and artificial intelligence, we can see in our platform, because we can see the most popular AI APIs and how often they're being hit and certain trends like that. And so it's really cool to kind of nerd out on Spotify and what they've done with their data, because I feel like I can do something similar in terms of seeing popularity of public APIs and how they're being used and stuff like that. And then companies can use that internally as well in terms of like making information available to their developers with API discovery to speed up collaboration. So that's my new world. I'm about 4.5 months in.
And we're going to dig way more into that after we hear from Meredith. Meredith, what the heck is Spotify Wrapped?
So it was a marketing campaign that originally was run in 2015, but they called it Year in Music that year. And it didn't become Spotify Wrapped until the following year. And there's actually some like dirt going on with this story. This former intern was the one who's like claiming that she came up with the whole idea for it. And so she wrote on X, which I'll never get used to calling it X, on Twitter. She wrote, "I really invented the Spotify Wrapped story as an intern project in 2019, and they haven't looked back since. lol is what you wrote. Also the year 2019, it doesn't really line up. Anyway, Spotify was like, this is not really true. They told Refinery 29, they said since Spotify's Wrapped concept was first introduced in 2013, hundreds of employees have contributed ideas and creative concepts that have made the experience what it is today.
This is probably the most cross-functional project that we ever do. It truly, truly takes an army.
While ideas generated during Spotify's internship program have on occasion informed campaigns and products, based on our internal review, that is not the case here with Spotify Wrapped. It's unfortunate things have been characterized otherwise. So basically, they're like, tons of people have put in ideas for this, like it was a group effort. Let's put that to bed, basically. So that was what I could find as far as like where the idea came from. But Justine, as you had mentioned, like it's basically like a list of each user's most listened to genres, artists, and songs, along with a bunch of statistics. And it's really like evolved over the years. So from its original launch, a couple of years later, they updated the graphics and renamed it Spotify Wrapped. And that's when it like really took off. So its first couple of years like was a bit slow, but being able to like post it as cards on your social media, that was newer. And since 2017, they've added in other details, like they introduced listening auras. So it's really interesting that like the data they collect on you as a listener is like, they can make these inferences as like how you're feeling when you're listening.
The heart of the entire Wrapped campaign is that we are telling stories through data.
Of course, it's like when 2016 was a weird year and they picked up on all of these like weird moods and things like that. Like, so in 2021, they had these listening auras. I don't remember what mine was, but I remember it being really fun. And then in 2022, they defined you with one of 16 listening personalities. I think I was like Bohemian or something like that. I don't remember. I don't know if you, Justine, if you remember, but one thing that's like super fun and why I like took off was like on the part of users, like posting it to your social media is like a way that you can like define yourself, define your online personality, your persona. It really requires like minimal effort. I think it's like a couple clicks to put it on your story. And there are really low stakes to like further define your personal brand. So it's like low lift, high payoff. And a couple of like professors had some things to say about it. NPR's Morning Edition featured some folks on there talking about Spotify Wrapped. This guy, Brian Uzu, is a professor of leadership and social networks at Northwestern University's Kellogg School of Management. It's a long title. He said, "We love Spotify Wrapped because it's irresistible."
What's special about Wrapped is that people are literally asking us for it.
We really want to be part of the group, but at the same time, we want to be different from everybody. And so it's a way of like taking part in this sort of like mass movement while also like further defining who you are as an individual. And then this professor at Tufts University, Nick Seaver, he also spoke to NPR's Morning Edition. And he said people like to identify themselves with the objects that they consume, with the things they listen to, with the things they watch, with the things they read. It might reveal something about yourself that you didn't know. And I think some people find that exciting. People often enjoy seeing themselves reflected back. So hashtag Spotify Wrapped trends every year on X or Twitter. As I think this was from a 2021 article, but they were marking 66.5 billion views on TikTok. Alex Bodman, who's Spotify's vice president and global executive creative director, told Variety, "We started to realize that this was an incredible way to get our passionate users to shout from the rooftops about the brand."
There's ad awards, there's campaign awards, but at the end of the day, making people want to talk about something is the only metric that matters.
And so if I were to sort of like take several lessons from this. One was like Spotify Wrapped didn't really take off until it had that visual component. So I feel like visual beauty is like really important to marketing, obviously. I think hyper-personalization using data is super important. Make engagement a very easy lift for the consumers. And then people always want to further define who they are and learn something new about themselves. And I feel like this was a way that Spotify really engaged users in that way. I know, Justine, you mentioned your predictions for your Spotify Wrapped. Ian, do you have others for yours if you're using Spotify?
Well, so yeah, I mean, I use Spotify way more because I use it for like half of my podcasts, but not the other half. I have no idea why. But I listen to certain podcasts on Apple and the other ones on Spotify. I don't know why. But I wonder if they're going to do it for podcasts. I don't think they did for last year.
They did, actually. I could tell you what my top ones are.
Oh, they did for last year? Oh, really? Oh, interesting.
They did. So now I have it. And that's really where the kid thing comes in, because I listen to a lot of like audiobooks with my kid. And so my last 2 spots are definitely, but I've got my top 3. So
it gave you podcasts, not just audiobooks?
Armchair Expert, and then Morbid, kind of like a true crime junkie. Don't know what that says about me. And then This Is Important, which is like the guys from Workaholics. I think they're hilarious. So like that's my lighthearted workout playlist. So it's kind of fun because you get to see what you listen to there, which is something that I think Spotify did as a company that was incredibly smart, that I'd love to chat with you about since you're the podcast guy today.
Yeah, I didn't know that they did the podcast stuff last year. That's funny. I didn't remember that. I definitely remember the Shakira one. That was really funny. So my predictions for this year for Spotify is going to be Darius Rucker, top artist for sure, because we listen to a lot of
Wagon Wheel.
We listen to a lot of Darius.
Oh yeah.
And then I have a million podcasts that I listen to, obviously for work and for pleasure. But I don't know which is going to be the top one there. Probably Remarkable. But other than Remarkable, maybe...
subtle plug.
Listen to the Scuffed Soccer podcast a lot. But actually, no, I don't listen to that on Spotify. So there you go. Yeah. So those are great takeaways, Meredith. I think a couple B2B takeaways for me from Spotify Wrapped. So first off, the fact that it didn't start as Spotify Wrapped, that it started as Year in Review, it probably would have had a similar trajectory if it had continued staying that. But naming it something is important. And Spotify is a long phrase. It's 3 syllables. And Wrapped is like 1, right? And anytime you're past like 4 syllables for like a brand thing, you're already like getting kind of long. And so I think that they needed to sort of shorten that. Second piece, Meredith, that you mentioned is sort of like the visual branding. I think that's great. Third thing is that it really took off in, after 2016, because they ran out of home ads that then people took photos of and then shared them all over the internet. So the combination, that's like, there's like many layers to this thing, which is you're finding data about your customers that is really funny and weird and interesting and unique. You're sharing that with other people. You're putting it on a billboard or somewhere, and then you're taking photos of it and then sharing the photos of the billboards all over.
Yep.
So like if they had just ran that campaign as a tweet, for example, rather than just shown the photo, that's not, for whatever reason, it's not as funny as them putting it on a billboard, right? It's
totally.
Yeah.
I agree. Like the 2018 one that I am now remembering, because like the Ed Sheeran thing in my top, like jogged my memory on it. I remember there was one in San Francisco that was about like something with Ed Sheeran. There was a playlist called I Love Gingers playlist. And it was like, there was somebody who put 48 Ed Sheeran songs on the I Love Gingers playlist and how many times they listened to it.
Well, I've always supported people that are pretty pale with red hair. Yeah.
And so it's just like, I think it's really random, but really eye-catching and funny. So it's like the random data that you can find that promote a brand, that give it also a fun feel for what the brand aesthetic is super powerful, I think. And they did a really good job integrating it as a full integrated marketing campaign in a lot of different types of media.
Okay, so it was the billboard, and it said 2018 goals at the top. And then it said, be as loving as the person who put 48 Ed Sheeran songs on their, quote, I Love Gingers playlist. Shape of You, most streamed song ever. So good.
So good. Like, can you imagine walking around and being like, wait, that's me? And like being to your friends, like, no, really, guys, that's me. Like, look.
Point of pride for them, maybe.
Right?
I think another thing that crushes this type of campaign is that it finds people's names for their playlists, which are so funny. And it's not user-generated content, right? Because it's not, your users didn't make it and post about it. It's them finding these like really weird names for playlists and then promoting those names and playlists. And it's funny because like, oh, this person has a playlist called I Love Gingers. But also like people, have funny playlists. I have a friend who one of their playlists is called Crying and Puking. and it's only 4 songs. One time I asked him, I'm like, why is it only 4 songs? He's like, you're pretty much done crying and puking after the 4th song.
I mean, one would hope. That's
yeah,
a little alarming. I'm pretty proud of my quarantine playlist, actually. You want to guess what it's called?
Corin Justine.
Oh, damn, you did get it.
Did I really?
Yes, that's it. Corin Justine, yes.
Yes.
Well done. I think it was the punny hint that I gave you.
Well, I do like a turn of phrase. Yeah, it's just, I think anytime you're teaching people something about the weirdness of others is always great, right? It's like always such fertile ground to be funny because you can't believe that other people are that weird, even though you're that weird yourself, right? And Spotify is, able to do that. And like, is it really that interesting what your friends listened to last year? Like, kind of not, right?
I mean, it depends. It really does depend because sometimes you can find your people that way. Like some of my closest friends are the Swifties. And so we have a whole Swifties chat. I just went to Italy to go see her concert. And so it's like kind of now it's like a competition. It's like, okay, well, who's going to have the highest number of minutes on Spotify Wrapped?
Well, yeah.
So,
no, yeah.
Yeah, it depends.
That's what I mean is like if someone you didn't know was like, I listen to a lot of whatever, Black Sabbath or something like that. And you're like, I didn't know that you like that type of music. That's kind of interesting. But also, someone might come up to you and say that they listen to whatever. And you're like, oh, I don't really care. But I think the idea that it does teach you a little bit more about your friends in a way that you might not know them as well as you think you do is really fascinating, right? And then I think it's set up this, structure that is consistent and repeatable and a mind that they continue to go to year in and year out. And I always talk about serialized content and why it's so important. Spotify Wrapped is the perfect piece of serialized content. You get to come out with it every year. People know what's coming. They know what to expect. And they're looking to you not only to tell them what their Spotify Wrapped is, but also to make funny jokes about all the other people who made ridiculous stuff.
How do we create even more conversations to really keep that magic going?
And that's the nirvana for someone doing content marketing is to create a little mini franchise, little mini brand of their marketing that people look forward to. I don't care at all about any other content that Spotify makes, but I care about Spotify Wrapped. Like a perfect encapsulation of how your brand can be, where it's like people can care just about one thing that you make and not anything else. But the fact that you make that one thing is super valuable to them.
Yeah, I agree. And like, because I run a larger team, I've actually have used Spotify Wrapped, not just like to connect with my friends, but it's every single year running the team. Everybody knew, okay, when's Spotify going to come out? And I've used it as icebreakers and conversations for like the month to get to know people and actually had everybody share like, okay, what's your top Spotify Wrapped? And so that way it got us to get to know people in terms of like, wow, would not have pegged you as a heavy metal person, or okay, classical music all the time, all day. That's interesting, And so I think it also is a way that for me as a leader, I was able to bring my team together across not just geos, but age gaps, because whether it was somebody who had been in the industry on my team for 25 years or somebody who was 22 and just graduated from college, they each had a Spotify Wrapped. And so it was really interesting to see the dynamics and how they compared theirs and how it brought them together. And it gave them like an inside joke and like something that they could talk about. And then that makes team collaboration easier. So for me, I even like found it helpful as a leader of a team.
Anything else on Spotify Wrapped that we missed? Any other marketing takeaways?
I have one more. And I think we talked about it a little bit earlier on with like kind of how they combined out of home and everything buys with digital. And so I think for me, that is the best kind of campaign that I'm currently working on spinning up at Postman and have done a lot over my career, which is like an integrated marketing campaign, which is like a cross-channel strategy. It's truly involves a consistent message that's going to be present and brand look and feel across whatever channel it's going to be, whether that's social media, video, TV, ad, like podcast ads, whatever it may be. And really what that helps with is consistent branding. So people know you because you are integrating multiple media touch points with uniformity across all of your style guides, logos, visual appeal, fun. So like all of those Ed Sheeran, like red hair jokes and everything, like, you know, that was the feel of the campaign versus dodgy, stuck up. And then you also look like you know your customer a little bit better because you're going to where your customers are and putting it in a format that they consume it, which ultimately will improve results because you can't assume in a marketing campaign that somebody's always going to listen to a podcast or somebody's always going to be searching on Google or somebody's always going to be watching ESPN. So I'm going to run my ads on this. Like you have to place your bets in a lot of different areas to grab attention and then have the user, they may hear it on repeat. So have that message be consistent across channels and in different formats. Like don't run a campaign that's going to be the same thing as what you put on LinkedIn or what you put on NPR or something like that. And so I think it shows that you really know your audience when you're able to adapt it like that. And Spotify did it incredibly well with the billboards because even people who didn't listen to Spotify or didn't have social media and are maybe living under a rock, like they still were able to see it, you know?
We never knew that this stuff was happening. Like, right. I didn't know that someone was, you know, listening to 48 Ed Sheeran songs in the I Love Gingers playlist, right? Like, it's like, I didn't know that that happened or that, you know, someone, you know, listened to it a song a million times one day. And that's what's so funny is like that it is real and that they surface that. And you got to wade through, like, it looks pretty effortless to us. Who know? I mean, they might have a whole team that works on this all year. Like, I have no idea. You know what I mean? Like, there's like a red siren that goes off. It's like, oh, we just had someone listen to the same song 20 times in a day. And maybe people game the system now. I don't even know.
I mean, it's their biggest thing all year. I bet you they do have a team that does it. And then what's interesting is I've actually done a lot of research on Spotify in general. Like I said, I'm a big fangirl of the company. And I think one other thing that this campaign has greatly helped with was, I think in 2020 or 2021. So after a few years of running this campaign, and I believe it was in 2020, there's a clear delineation of when Spotify starts to take over Apple, which in itself is a crazy feat because I have this device that I'm looking at. It's my iPhone. It comes with Apple Music. And I had to make the choice to go download Spotify and not use Apple, which comes with it. They even try to give you 90 days free, like packaged with your phone across, like, I think they call it Apple One or something now. And I still was like, no, I'm going to use Spotify because I want my Spotify Wrapped. And I think their CEO thought of that when they were building. So when he was looking at building the company, he actually, one of his favorite quotes that I have of his was called "Build for audio, not music," because he knew that they were going head to head with Apple. And in order to do that, especially when Apple Music had been such a huge thing after, if I'm dating myself, but like the Napster era and everything, and that all got shut down and everybody's using Apple Music and iTunes. To overcome a music player, they knew that they had to have other things coming besides just music. So their leg up was, one, the amount of data that they could give you. And so they, as a CEO, probably invested in an incredible data platform that could then be queried and used in a legal way for campaigns. So they knew that was a differentiator for them. But also the build for audio and not music. So now they're very huge on podcasts and they're very huge on audiobooks. And the way they've structured that to get you to look at upgrading your account from free so that you don't listen to ads. But also if you upgrade to premium, then you can add family members. You can have cross-device. You can get access to certain audiobooks and stuff like that. And so I think like that wasn't a last-minute decision. That was something this company planned for, knowing Spotify Wrapped was such a big piece of that. And they successfully did it. They overtook one of the absolute biggest companies in the game. And that is nearly impossible to do. So it's incredibly impressive.
I would also add, you know, like their investment in podcasts, I think is a huge part of that. And I think that, you know, numbers wise, they spent a ton of money. They spent $200 million on The Ringer. They spent $200 million on Gimlet. They bought Anchor. They did a bunch of stuff there. And I think a lot of those type of investments, it spent an infinity amount of money on Rogan and making that exclusive. So they spent all this money. And I think that a really good lesson there as a brand marketer is you got to get people from thinking basically Spotify didn't have podcasts, and then they added podcasts.
Right.
So they spent, just right there, $500 million just trying to get a bunch of hardcore podcast listeners to know that Spotify has podcasts. Like that's the thing that's all they're trying to do. Yes, they're trying to convert them over. Yes, they're trying to have them listen on their platform. Yes, they're trying to build up, ad inventory and all those things. Like there's a million things that they're doing. But really the biggest thing is like, I've listened, like for me, I used to listen on Stitcher, and then I think they sunsetted it. But I'd listened to like 10,000 hours of podcasts on Stitcher, and I switched over eventually to Apple and to Spotify. And it's like, that's the big switch, right? Like they just had to get people like me who've already listened to a million podcasts over to be like, try us.
Yep.
Which is a really, really hard thing to do.
Yeah. I agree. And so I think the way I think about this, I read an article about it a while back, and I think the strategy that they did for Build for audio and not music in order to do this was the HBO model a little bit, which is what you were just talking about, which is they acquired podcasts that were with exclusivity. So like if you wanted to listen to them and love them or hate them, Joe Rogan is one of the biggest in the game. And it was exclusive on Spotify for a long time. You had to go sign up for Spotify, which is very much so the HBO model. Like Sex and the City, you couldn't watch on other platforms, right? So it worked very well for them. So like that was like, come here to create the content because we're going to get the listeners for you. But then it's like they invested almost in the opposite, which is the YouTube model at the same time, which is a little controversial, which is they acquired, I think it was called Anchor at the time. And I will have to go fact check that. But Anchor basically made it easier for anyone, regardless of background or credentials. You could be my aunt living in the middle of Tahoe who's never done a podcast before ever, to create and distribute and monetize shows. So it was like democratizing podcasts and to attract net new creators, but in a massive volume that made it really easy for them to do, to entice new creators to have Spotify be their platform of choice. So I think it was really interesting that they decided to have those at once. And that wasn't an accident. Like they made acquisitions that were purpose built in order to make that be the product strategy, in order to make this campaign be so successful. And then I'd say the third was like, they invested really heavily in distributing the content and focused on innovation by releasing constantly and product discovery, improving the UX of Spotify, and started to build in recommendation algorithms and use AI in order to, like, now I have a DJ that will recommend stuff to me based off of like throwbacks and past Spotify raps and stuff. So it's like, I think the way they're setting their platform apart compared to other audio channels is really smart.
It allows you to go there for everything, right? And then, they have all of the data around it so they can feed that stuff back into their marketing and use the data to provide insights, which is, the name of the game.
In general, this wraps up my obsession with Spotify is I think not only are they great marketers, but I think the product strategy and business strategy is very sound. And it all kind of came together in the most beautiful way to create one of the biggest campaigns in the world.
Okay, so switching gears to Postman.
Yeah.
So you mentioned how you do a little bit of this there. How do you think about like content broadly, investing in content, investing in brand, and doing that as a head of a marketing team?
Incredibly important, especially for me. I think content can mean different things for different audiences. But for me, where my main audience is developers, content is marketing. Developers are notoriously hard to market to. It's like they have a shield around their head and it's like marketing, and it's like you try to get it in there and it'll just ping right off the shield. Like, isn't an analogy if you try to think of it that way. So it's very different than if you're trying to market to a marketer or a designer or, like you're a mom and pop shop. It's very different. And so in order to penetrate that shield, content is extremely important and powerful. So the way I think about it with content is less is more. I think that creating like a core piece of pillar content that is super powerful that you can then repurpose across a lot of different channels, similar to what Spotify did here. They created one campaign, Spotify Wrapped, and then used it in a million different ways throughout the entire year. I think that's very smart. A lot of people do like state of reports, or you can use product data for that. For me, like I've written a lot of keynotes for different companies that I've worked for, and then using that core piece of content for throughout the year, whether it be in podcasts or in analyst relations or in PR or in written content or in like having those topics be discussed in UGC channels amongst community. And so I'm a big believer in that core concept. But also for me, I think great technical accuracy for developers. Showing the product is very big. You need to show, not tell. So demos are huge as well as like great documentation in my world. And then I think for brand, one of the biggest things that works for us is actually, a popular term is called flywheel, which is basically word of mouth marketing. And I've done it at Atlassian. I'm like now heavily still investing in it at Postman, which is you want your customers to be the ones that talk about your product. So how do you get them to do that? And the first thing is one, build a product that they love, that they want to talk about. But then the second one is give them a place to talk about it. And so we've invested very heavily in community as well as like a big piece of brand marketing, because there's no better advocate than that is your customers. So those are big pillars of my content strategy, I'd say.
What about ROI? Like if we were to look at the Spotify Wrapped when you're making that, I mean, clearly it started off as something that was like fun and silly and then became something that's like, oh, wow, we can do, billions of impressions. This is crazy. But, what was the ROI of throwing up those billboards in 2016? Like, that calculation is, I can tell you it probably exists somewhere on some spreadsheet and, it was made up numbers,
You're right. A lot of times when you're looking at brand, there's a few different ways you can do it. So sometimes when you're looking at making a large investment in brand marketing, you'll want to start small and you'll want to start by region. So that way you can sort of measure brand lift, right? So if I decide I'm going to go big in these 5 cities and nowhere else, I can do like a comparison to see, did I see a lift in these cities compared to others? Like that's one way that you can do it, especially if you're going to do out of home buys, like targeting certain cities. The other one is Spotify directly could tell the attribution from a lot of that. They could look at like increase in direct. They could look at direct clicks from that because of the heavy social media. So I think some of the attribution was very easy to track. And I think there's some element of it where maybe this answer isn't popular, but it depends on the channel. So you work in podcasts. I think measuring a podcast by last click attribution would be a big miss because, right? So you need to know what channels you're investing in and the metrics that should follow. So for podcasts, it would be subscribers and growth, right? And for YouTube, same thing. YouTube cares about YouTube. Don't try to get people to click off of YouTube to your website because then their algorithm won't play you as much. So, it's the CTA is like, subscribe, watch the next playlist. Like you create like playlists and watch the next video. Whereas search engine optimization can be way more about like, what's the ranking? What's the traffic? You could look at it from last touch. And so it really depends on the channel. But if you shut off brand, it's a very huge miss just because you feel like you can't directly measure it to last touch. And I'm a pretty firm believer in that.
I think also just like brand when it's funny.
Yeah.
Like that's the other thing. It's like, I'm very much if you believe it exists, you should make it.
Yeah.
Like to me, the Spotify Wrap campaign in 2016 that they ran of pointing out all these silly things is just like, this is the joy of this crazy app and listening to music and like the human condition.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, it should just exist. It's a story that like people should know. Like someone sitting there was like, I just think people should know that this guy has, you know, all these Ed Sheeran, you know, songs. And I think that that's like at the core of creating stuff for your audience. Is like, you just have to believe that it exists, and you have to believe that it's going to provide value for them. And you have to believe that that in turn is going to provide value for the business. And that's the most important thing. Now, if you have a boring brand ad, or like you're just shoving your logo places, you know, like, yeah, maybe take a second look at that and be like, do we need to have our logo there on, you know, whatever, the sports team that we don't really have a connection with, and we don't even do anything with the marketing, or we don't need, you know, like, yeah, sure, second guess that. But if you have a really good story, and this is a team that shares what you believe, and you have lots of stories that you can do with them and all that sort of stuff, then it starts to like live beyond that. And you could say, you know, and they do a lot of work with the community, and that's what we believe in. And anyways, I think that there's ways to figure that stuff out.
I totally agree. And I actually just last week was talking to my team about this.
Yeah.
Which is, it's really popular right now to learn by reel, learn by GIF, or learning in a way that's making fun of something is like kind of a new form of marketing, right? And so actually I was thinking about, I went to the solar eclipse this year. And so one of my...
Did you really? Oh.
I did. It was really fun. I went to Texas for it. But because of that, I was like, you know, stalking X or Twitter, whatever we call it these days. Again, I agree with you. I'm not sure if I can ever move from not calling it Twitter. It's just Twitter. I mean, but I remember one of my favorite things on that day, because everybody's taking pictures of the eclipse, and it's like NASA, talk about like hopping on your moment. So they have a NASA Sun account, and then they have a NASA Moon account. And basically the NASA Sun blocked the NASA Moon account.
Oh,
and then God. NASA Moon tweeted out, oops, I did it again, #total solar eclipse. And it was just like, bravo. It's like, you know what? NASA like made yourself cool again. You knew this was your moment. You found a way to make it interesting and funny. And you grabbed my attention in a way where it's like, I probably would have never noticed, like, or gone to your brand channel before that, you know, like stuff like that, I think is brilliant. Like, make marketing fun.
Anything that we should be looking out for from Postman coming out in the not too distant future?
We have a few product drops coming up that I'm working on, but I think in general, some of the stuff that we just launched at our conference is super awesome for developers. So now we have, you know, your AI sidekick inside of Postman to help you test, deploy, and collaborate on APIs faster. We've got a product in beta called Flows, which is power of analogies. I'm using it, I'm calling it like an X-ray for API workflows, because you can take a level deeper to see how APIs all connect to each other to build an application, which is super hard to do. So we've got some fun stuff going on. And for those of your listeners who aren't devs, hopefully that X-ray analogy kept it lively for you.
Well, it has been wonderful having you on the show. For our listeners, you can go to postman.com, go nudge your developers, have them go check it out. Sign up for free. Justine, any final thoughts? Anything to plug?
I'm actually going to just say thank you to you. And I'm really looking forward to the next season of Murder in HR. You've got some of my faves on there. So I'm gonna plug for you.
Hey now. Appreciate it.
Hey
that
now.
Was the goal. Put people's favorite actors on there.
But this was lovely. Thank you for having me on.
Awesome. Thanks, Justine. Well, that's it for today. I hope you got some good ideas for your B2B content. Thank you for listening to Remarkable. I'm Ian Faison, CEO of Caspian Studios. Remarkable is created by the team at Caspian Studios, B2B podcast as a service. Caspian also creates fiction series for B2B companies, so if you want a business thriller, you can learn more at caspianstudios.com. Hollywood-style storytelling for B2B. And in today's episode, you heard from myself, Ian Faison, and Meredith O'Neill, senior producer here at Caspian Studios. Remarkable was produced this week by Meredith O'Neill, mixed by Scott Goodrich, and our theme song is Solomon by Falak. Be remarkable and rise above the noise.